Thank you. Have you got the spicy one? Good. I tell you now, wars have been fought over this. I tell you. The Ottomans have been slowly taking over parts of Europe and taking their greatest prize.
Istanbul was Constantinople, now it's Istanbul, not Constantinople.
See gulping a part of Europe as a good thing. It may have been a political or religious thing, something about the one who conquers Constantinople is the best of armies. There was one particular empire that did not see it in a very nice light, and they were the Mamluks, who defeated the Crusaders earlier in the decade.
Disappointed!
There could be a more pragmatic sticking point. These two empires had control of the lucrative spice trade, and the Europeans only recently got a taste, and they were.
That's a 10.
This all came to a head when the Ottomans took over Constantinople fully, and there was only two small puppet states called Dulkadir and Ramazali. These two Turkic beyliks worked as
It's okay, let me sit a three-way.
very similar to that, but it was more of a buffer state, so they don't stand on each other's toes for the two empires. But once the Ottomans were done with the Shia Safavid kingdom, the reason that the Safavids were defeated were twofold. One was that they overstretched with aggressive westward expansion, and number two, the introduction of artillery in the Ottoman Empire. And when the Safavids went to war with the Ottomans, they were like,
War's changed.
they found this out the hard way at the Battle of Chaldarin. The Ottomans stopped their expansion westwards, and this really got Ismail I so butthurt after his loss. Ismail drank himself into a stupor and never ever attempted at the Ottomans ever again. And the Ottomans saw this and said,
It's my turn!
and with that small detail, the Ottomans turned their attention southwards towards the Mamluks. As I mentioned before, there are a couple of theories why they wanted to take over Mamluk territories. The first theory is that they wanted.
Spicy meat. Yeah, boy.
We know at least that after the defeat of the Safavids, they now control the land route of the spice. But they wanted. And now the Ottomans wanted control over the sea route as well. The first move after regrouping and recuperating the army was to march southwards from Armenia. The Ottomans first captured the city of Diyarbakir in southeastern Anatolia. The Battle of Munjadabik was the one that clinched it for them. Al-Ghuri thought he was going to win. He, in his hubris, his army marched north with great pomp, accompanied by music and singing and festivities. The host included 15 high-rank emirs of 1,000 and 5,000 of his own royal guard. Talk about hubris.
Prince Ali, fabulous he.
Al-Ghuri thought it was an easy win anyway, so he started to hand out rewards before the battle to ensure the loyalty of his men.
I'll pay you.
Pay me what?
Money.
But unfortunate for him, he was killed during this battle before he could do that. I can only say,
No! In my hubris!
Salim, after winning the battle, entered the city of Aleppo, gave such a verbal smackdown towards the Mamluks, and then said to the Abbasid Caliph and the people of Aleppo, and basically said,
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
the other main reason the Ottomans won the battle, the Mamluk governor Khairul Bey had secretly sided with the Ottomans, though the government of Damascus had disclosed this to the Sultan, but he discredited the information. Hubris again.
You look like a snake!
Yes!
This led to a bit of a deep state situation in the Mamluk kingdom. Once the battle was over, the rest of the Mamluks cleared their head of their confusion and ran as fast as they could. back to Egypt to regroup and think, what is the best course of action now?
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
At this point of the war, we see a shift in thinking. Like clockwork, the Janissaries wanted to revolt. Surprise, surprise.
I'm tired of this shit!
They had split their forces, believing that the Mamluks were going to split their forces as well. This gave an opportunity for some of the Mamluk forces to desert back to the Ottomans. Maybe that's not the right words. The Mamluks in general were a group of individuals which were not held together by race. So changing alliances is a better way to put it. Hey, you can't blame them. No one wants to be on the losing side of a war, do they? From my research, I believe at this point the Sultan Selim now changed the priorities of the war and pointed out to his men that we are fighting for control of Hijaz. This was probably a political move on one's part, an allure that they were from the stock of the best of armies and they have a right to control the Holy Land. The reaction from the army was, whilst the army of both sides were getting prepared, Selim did another thing. The navy was doing the same. The commander of the navy, Reis, he was originally an...
Because a pirate is free, you are a pirate!
The reason for getting a privateer involved, this was due to the fearing Portuguese fleet that may cause a blockade on Bab al-Maghdab to continue. Reis' fleet aimed to clash with the Portuguese to free the trade route with India and to protect the Holy Land. And the Mamluks had...
And I got friends on the other side.
Well, enemies of my friend, something like that. Fortunate for the Ottomans, this threat never materialized except for a few skirmishes. So with that, they could concentrate on the task ahead, as Tuman Bey frantically recruited troops from various places in society, and also he was so desperate that even acquired Bedouins and attempted to equip them with some quantity of cannons and firearms. But it was...
It is too late for me, son.
When they finally met at the Battle of Cairo, the Ottomans had been supported by a fleet of about 100 ships that supplied the troops, and the cannons and artillery that the Mamluks brought here were kinda... For Tuman, it did not go well, but Tuman did something that was very un-Mamluk of him. Instead of fighting properly, he escaped to Giza with his men, or it might have because due to the capture of the Caliph at the time. Maybe, we don't really know, but one thing we can say, Tuman Bey was a very pragmatic, like they say, he was pragmatic till the end.
Clever girl.
When they clashed again in the city, it was like what we see today, modern warfare. They fought street by street, gully by gully, and for a number of days, civilians and army alike were targeted for indiscriminate killings. But after the dust settled, the Mamluks lost, and Tuman Bey was killed, and his body hung on the door of Cairo for all to see. Jeez, that's one way to send a message. Thus this final act signaled the end of the war. What can I say? That no one was right and no one was wrong really in this war. It was based on something not religious, but something pragmatic. The general sense of Islamic history as it's written by Muslims, it has an air of good versus evil, black versus white. But as we can see in this war, we can definitely see this in spectrums of grey. Well, the only thing that you can really say is people will be people. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Nevertheless, the Ottomans gained an extra 25% in tax revenue and the control of the two holy sites. which made them de facto leaders of the Muslim world till only very recently. Not bad for a war that lasted only 1 year. I don't know what to say. Who was right and who was wrong? Maybe you can tell me.